Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kechidori.
Hi guys, welcome back to another special episode here on Yeukai Business Show. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever thought about creating generational wealth? Well, if you have, you're in the right place because my guest today is going to show you how you can actually do that. Folasade has helped entrepreneurs and small business owners save over $25 million in lost revenue, tax assessment, penalties, and interest for over the last 12 months. Folasade has an interesting background. In fact, she grew up in an area that was predominantly African American community and saw firsthand how people struggle to create wealth. And in today's episode, she's going to show you how you too can create wealth for yourself and for the future generation. Folasade, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Now, you have an interesting background. For those who are yet to come across your work, they would love to hear how you started on this journey of helping entrepreneurs. Talk to us about your childhood when you were working with your dad.
Okay, so no, I ended up getting on this journey of entrepreneurship. I think it might honestly runs in the blood, to be honest with you, because my dad was self-employed. And so I had the exposure a bit earlier on than most people. But what it did was showed me that I really had options. I can go to school, get the degrees, but I don't have to go and work for anybody. So just being exposed to entrepreneurship early on allowed me to have multiple options. Now, when it came into me becoming an accountant, it was not only my father being an accountant that exposed me, but it was just the harsh economics that I endured and that my community was enduring at that point, which really allowed me to see that if we don't have control over our money, generations of welfare recipients, generations of failures to come. So at that point, I'm like, my dad said something to me very young. He said, Shade, in his African voice, Shade, Africans. He said, accountants, we run the world. I'm like, run the world? I'm like 13, 14. He like, accountants run the world. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, go check every CEO or CFO of the Fortune 500 companies are CPAs and accountants. He said, each president consult with an accountant. Economists consult with accountants. And I'm like, no. I didn't believe it. So, we didn't have Google then. So I went to school, went to our library, and he was right. Mostly every CFO, CEO had their CPA or already had an accounting background. Most of the wealthiest people in the world actually had accountants as their advisors. And at that point, I knew the only way that I can help my community was by me really learning the ins and out of accounting. So at that point, I was head on after that.
And of course, you ended up working with him and saw him how he was doing things straight away.
Yes.
What was it like to work with your dad?
It was tough, but it was also kind of like a hard knock life because you never got to do the fun stuff. You always had to do the tedious, the unimportant things. But working with my dad early on allowed me to see the need and the excitement around tax refunds. So, I didn't know anything about tax refunds. All I knew was that everybody in my neighborhood, right, we would go to H&R Block, stand in line for hours, okay, and everybody will come out with a lot of money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And so I go to my dad's office one day because I was interning with him, and he was like, oh, Shadi, I got some fun work for you to do. And I'm like, what? He said, go prepare this tax return.
Right.
And so I was preparing the first tax return. The client was getting $10,000 refund. And I'm like, Dad, he's getting $10,000. He was like, yeah, Sade, this is why everybody go crazy crack season. This is why people get divorced and baby mom was upset with daddies. It was just a mess. He was like, well, this is the reason why there's so much excitement. People receive the largest amount of money at one time during tax season. So at that point, I started to connect the dots between my community and how during tax season we spent so much, and after tax season was no money left, and the fact that everybody was welfare recipients, but they still worked and they didn't work enough. It was so confusing and very perplexing, like what's happening. So just that exposure into the taxes and doing my first tax return, it really showed me that if I'm going to help anyone break generational curses and build generational wealth, I have to start with the tax return for the Black community.
Incredible. And then, of course, you went on an interesting journey financially to educate yourself, get yourself qualified, and you ended up starting one of the companies that is helping out business owners, especially in the Black community. Yes. Tell us some of the things you have accomplished to date in helping other small business owners.
Oh my goodness. So recently, we've been getting waves of messages from our clients. One of our clients signed up with us, and this is kind of like the typical results if they do the work, okay? So one of our clients signed up with us December 4th, 2018. She was hesitant. She's like, I don't need bookkeeping. I don't really know if I need this and, everything. So now she's been with me since 2018, but the first year working with me, I doubled her revenue. So she was making $59,000 in 2018. 2017, she made $114,000. 2019, $114,000. Then now 2020, even with the COVID, she's making more money now than what she did in 2019 and 2018 during COVID.
Okay, right. So what has she done differently? Maybe for somebody who's listening there, say, oh, okay, has she increased her market share? Tell us.
We did a variety of things. So first of all, we had to do a capacity analysis. Right. We had to say, okay, if you're a hairstylist, what is the maximum amount of money that you can make? So when I did my capacity analysis, I realized that she can only bring in at the most $150,000 by herself, and with her sister in her business, right? So the first thing was capacity. I had to ask her, are you comfortable with only making $150,000? She said, oh no, I want to make more money. I said, okay. So the next test I did was to evaluate her calls. Was she charging enough when I compared her prices to other hairstylists? Was her products being sold enough? So we did a cost analysis. So it was different layers. So I don't just do one thing and say this is going to work. No, when we're really building a business, you have to hit it from multiple angles. So we did the capacity check, okay? We also did the cost analysis, okay? The third thing that we ended up doing was to see whether or not she was marketing. The average small business owner isn't marketing. What they're doing is they have the income, they have the recurring clients, and they get complacent. So I had to teach her how to sell, how to upsell, how to converse with her clients, to introduce new products, how to now come from one service and get them to purchase 3 services at once. So it's not a one size fits all yet. What I realized, to really help a business, it's unique to the individual business, the industry, and the owner. And so I did about 15 different things, but she did the work. Once I presented to her the numbers and the information and what I think she should do, she did it, and she got the results. That's one client. Another client, same situation. She made 2018. She didn't have the numbers, but we just did her taxes now. We're working on taxes. We ended up getting around $70,000 for 2018. 2019, $140,000. Already 2020, she's already reached $100,000 already.
Incredible.
So, but this client, so this client is a publishing client. So I help her, one, hire, create systems and processes, create a duplicatable process, So now she can just focus on being the face of the company and bringing in clients. I also help her sell better. So I listen to her sales conversation and tweak their sales script, tweak her live stream sales script, and started breaking down all of her weaknesses. And now she's been with me going on 2 years and she's free.
Incredible. But one thing that is obvious from those two examples of your customers is when you get to work with individuals or business owners, you get to really go down to what is the real issue there. Now, today we want to talk about the generational wealth. This is something that you believe in, and you help other business owners when they're creating their plan to think about that. How did you get started in thinking this way?
Well, honestly, I started thinking about generational wealth is because when you think about it, when we start the business, none of us just wake up and say, I want to start a business, but I don't want to keep it in the family. No one really said that. I don't want nobody to own it. I just want to die and the business die. I've never really heard too many people say that. So what I realized was that most people's goals is not selfish, it's more selfless. So most people want to have something to pass over, even if it's just a meal. So at that point, I realized, okay, well, to build generational wealth, where does it start? It first starts with the mindset and self. If the person knows they want to build a legacy, they want to be rich, they want to be successful, they have the mindset. I don't have to do too much conditioning. But if they don't have the mindset, then we have to start doing the mental conditions that goes along with having that mindset of what I do to now will pay my family for 10 to 15 years. So with that mindset, you won't just make quick random decisions. So you have to first start by assessing them and then also now incorporating the mindset practices that they need. So what triggered and intrigued me most with this, the color of your skin does predict how much wealth you carry over to your next generation at the state that we are in now. But once I learned to condition their mind, the color of your skin no longer matters. It's all about your actions. But that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, that in accounting and what I do, I don't condition their mind first. We will never be able to accomplish anything, let alone generational wealth.
Incredible. Now, I know you speak to a lot of people about this generational wealth. What have you discovered as the myth around this concept?
One of the myths is that you have to already be wealthy or rich.
Right.
One of the myths. Another myth that I've been used to breaking is that if you don't make a lot of money, you can't save, or if you don't make enough, it's nothing you can do. So those are like the myths. And so in my community per se, the brown community, Black, American community, those myths is what stop in general. Oh, well, I wasn't born like that. I wasn't born with wealth. I don't understand that. So also the lack of exposure to it. So it's, when we're talking about generational wealth in the Black community, it's not a one size fit all. It's really an independent, consoling, counseling scenario. So from a general level, the myth that I see is the fact that you have to be wealthy. Another myth is that you have to make a lot of money. The third myth is that you have to be smart. And so those are the three myths that I get often that I have to debunk.
So obviously, you don't have to have all that. You can start right where you are as a business owner. If you apply a certain way of thinking and you get a mentor to show you exactly how to do that.
Exactly.
That gives a lot of hope for many of the business owners in our community, because many of them, in that very first stage. For example, I'll give my example myself. Like when I moved from Zimbabwe to England, I was a first generational migrant. So you're coming into a different country, everything different, so you just have to start afresh. And I'm in the process of creating that generational wealth. That's why I was so fascinated when I discovered that that's what you specialize in. I thought, okay, let's talk about this stuff. So, hearing that you don't have to have all that and just have the right mindset being taught, gives you that punch that you need or that courage for you to go further. Now,
Yes.
for those business owners who have already started thinking in that way, are there any mistakes you have observed that they commit which eventually stop them from creating that generational wealth?
That's a very good question. And you might not understand where I'm coming from, but when you think about it, you might understand. When we deprivation,
Right.
self-deprivation, so many people online say, don't buy, don't spend, save your money, don't eat out, don't buy Starbucks, don't do that. That self-deprivation is what stops businesses the most, because you work so hard 80, 90 hours a week. And then because you focus on generational wealth, you're afraid to treat your wife to a lunch date. Or
Right.
because you're trying to do generational wealth, you won't buy the extra pair of shoes for yourself. So self-deprivation is where I see is the biggest problem that we face, because many don't know how to balance between your desires, your wants, and what will keep us, and the amount that you can spend that will keep you still aligned with your goals of building generational wealth. If you look at everything online, it says no Starbucks, nothing. I don't believe in that, because I believe that if you're working hard, you should have enough money to treat yourself, even if you are building generational wealth. And that is one of the benefits of being successful, to treat ourselves, to have abundance. So we're now saying you have to deprive yourself and you have to think abundantly. You're playing mind games with yourself. So you have to understand that to really build generational wealth, you have to have a solid balance.
Right.
You have to know when not to spend, when to spend, how to spend, what to spend it on, and you have to know when it's time for you to take your wife and your husband on a vacation. You have to know that balance. Because if you don't, you're going to burn out. And if you burn out, no generational wealth. If you're afraid to spend money, or you're scared to make money because you can't enjoy it, it causes burnout. I've seen more people burn out because they think what society believes is what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Let's use me for example, right? I've been depriving myself for years, building my business, reinvesting back into my staff, our systems, our processes. So I haven't done any shopping, like big shopping, in years, just to be disciplined and build up the habit of not being materialistic and just breaking curses that I had to break to be where I am, right?
Right.
So last month, I said, you know what? It's my birthday. I'm going to treat myself. So I went and bought me a luxury product, but I had to. And the reason being is because you have to also play mind tricks with your mind to say, well, when I'm wealthy, I can do this freely. When I build generational wealth, my kids can do this freely. But if we just deprive ourselves, we start to ask ourselves, is building wealth worth the pain and misery that I'm living in now?
Indeed, it makes sense. I remember the first time I heard about this concept, I went to T Half Acres event. You may be familiar with that, and discover how ultra wealth individuals manage their money, and they compartmentalize their wealth. That they've got the spending money, they've got fund money, they've educational money, and they have different pots of money. And ever since I started applying that concept, it helped me to balance, to become a balanced person. So I totally agree with that. And other than that, is there any other way that you see business owners sabotaging their efforts to creating generational wealth?
Definitely. But first of all, just lacking the discipline and sticking with your budgets.
Right.
When we set a budget for the month, you want to stick to it at all costs. Now, you may have your situation where you won't be able to stick with the budget. But what I've found is that if we don't have the discipline in terms of our mindset, when it comes down to being disciplined and depriving ourselves of certain things, If you don't have it, you're going to break your budget every month. You're going to cause yourself to overspend every month because you didn't have the mindset where it can say, you know what, I have to be disciplined and stick to my budget at all costs. So I feel as though the biggest thing that hurt generational wealth is the fact that we break our budget on a consistent pattern with things that is not revenue generating or asset driven.
Indeed. Well, let's move gear for a moment here and talk about how do you create that generational wealth. This is the part which I know a lot of people are looking forward to. If you were to talk to me as somebody who's starting out in business, very excited about the potential of becoming financially free and creating more opportunities for others, what things do I need to put in place to ensure I reach that goal?
Well, I'm going to start on first. I always have to start on the mental because where I sit, if it's not done on the mental level yet, it never gets done. So the first thing I would say is that the first thing we all need to understand is who we are.
Right.
If you go to the core of who you are, you will successfully build generational wealth without a hitch. And the reason why I say that is because once you know what you want, who you are, and become unwavering, when you go to do your budgets for the month, you will be able to stick to the budget.
Right.
When you go to say, if I put a private school, you're going to be able to stick to it. So multiple ways that I build generational wealth here. And first of all, I had to have the mindset that I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm this without expensive clothes, expensive digs, and all that stuff. I got comfortable with that. The second thing I started to do was really come familiar with my spending habits. I realized that I overate when my husband traveled. I realized that throughout the week, by Friday, if I don't meal prep, I'm buying more food out to eat. So I had to figure out what are my triggers, what are my vices, and what is it triggering me to do? That was the second thing. So here from this conversation, we know that generational wealth is more so a mindset thing. The
Right.
third thing I ended up doing was asking me, what does it look like?
Okay, before we move to the third thing, I want to talk about becoming familiar with your spending. In your efforts helping business owners, how have you helped them to identify, what's happening there? I know there are great tools there, but in your experience, what have you advised people, or what have you seen works the most for business owners?
The first way that I've seen works the most effective is us putting it down on paper or in Excel, flat in your face. What's the monthly expense? How much do it cost? When is it due? When most people, the average person don't know what's coming out of their bank account. And by me forcing them to put it on paper physically in their face, they start to see, oh my gosh, every month I'm spending this. I don't even log into this software. Every month I'm spending this. So by the first step to really getting a hold of it all is to put everything that you spend on paper and ask yourself why.
Incredible.
Why am I eating out every Friday? Why am I shopping at this store? What is it? And then once we realize, we're going to realize that society is triggering us to be poor spenders and to have bad habits. And then we can start fighting the vices like that. So for example, with me, I used to be a shopaholic. For me to be where I am now, I had to stop shopping. I had to become very focused on the goal. So first of all, I had to remove myself from every mailing list, from all the stores and malls. The second thing I had to do was remove my PayPal, being connected to all of these stores to make it harder for me to purchase. The third thing that I had to do was figure out what triggered me to shop. Once I figured out those three things, I haven't been shopping in over like 6-7 years now. So once I figured out those three things, I've been able to control my spending, and I really don't even spend. I'm like the cheapest person ever. And like, so.
Yeah. You know what? From a personal experience, that exercise of becoming familiar with your expenditure truly liberates you, because if you can see it clearly, you can change it effectively because you know exactly what is happening. And it's not a very nice experience because you realize that I'm just giving money away, especially if it's a business and it's a huge amount of money and you feel bad about that. But it's worth doing that. It will produce results for you in the long run because you are now aware of what's going on. And like in our community, unawareness truly kills your business and what you're trying to do. Let's talk about the third thing here as we come towards the end of our time together.
Yes. Okay, so the third way to really build generational wealth is to really see what you want. So first of all, let me debunk this. You can build generational wealth by working for someone. You may have to work a little harder, become a little bit more disciplined, but it's possible. So that the next level of building generational wealth is really ask yourself, how many generations do I want the wealth to pass through? What type of wealth do I want to pass through? And how much am I willing to work for or contribute to building generational wealth?
Amazing.
Once we
Amazing.
So once we ask ourselves those three core questions, then we can start to see what are we willing to do. So you've heard people say everybody has to be an entrepreneur to be wealthy. That's not true. Some people can invest at their job, buy stock options at their job. Instead of asking for salary, ask for employee stock options. Hint for your audience. Instead of always getting the cash, you can ask for stock options. Okay, that's how a lot of people became wealthy. Receptionists, secretaries, instead of asking for their salary for 1 month, they'll say, "Give me stock options for what my salary is worth." Okay, so you can do that. You can also say, okay, well, if I am going to be a business owner and build wealth, all right, what assets, what instruments could the business create to help me build generational wealth on a personal level? So remember, the business is a tool to build the wealth. It may not be the thing that passes on for generations, okay? So now look here. The business can now set up and pay for your life insurance, your health insurance, set up your retirement account, and match your retirement, okay? So if your business alone, you have 4 different avenues to build generational wealth. So we already have 4 here. But if you don't want to be a business owner, those options aren't for you. So that's why I said figuring out what life you want, which direction you want to go in, predicates our options. Okay. So the third thing that you want to do, once we know our options, now we need to see what we have and freely to invest. You never take your last to invest. Okay. You take the extra. This is why they say don't go to Starbucks. This is why they say don't shop. You have that extra money to invest. Okay, so you will have to do a budget. You have to do a business budget if you have a business. You have to do a personal budget if you have a personal. If you're for your personal, and you need to outline everything from your groceries to your hair to your nails and see what's left. If it's nothing less, for you to build generational wealth, you're going to have to cut some stuff back. And if you cannot afford to cut some stuff back or mentally not prepared, you got to start back over, get mentally prepared, and then come back to step 3 and adjust. But once you got the budget, the assets that you want to contribute, then you'll know, okay, I have $300 every month that I can either put X, Y, Z. And so at that point, this is where now you need your financial advisor. You need to start getting your investment portfolio accounts open, another savings account, and so forth. But without going through step 1, step 2, step 3, you're going to end up repeating the habit, reliving generational curses, and never achieving generational wealth.
Outstanding. Well, outstanding. There is so much there to take on, and I love the energy with which you are sharing this. And we certainly would love to have you on another show, maybe expanding on that. But we've just come up to the end of our time here. Now, for those who wants to go on further to study with you, or maybe use some of your services, where can they find you?
Okay, so you guys can find me on all things social media. Folasade, the accountant, spelled F as in Frank, OLA, S as in Samuel, ADE. Folasade, the accountant, on all social media.
Awesome. And once again, thank you for joining us here on this show. Now,